What's up, guys? It's the Four Horsemen Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Josh Romine. With me tonight, I have Alex Devaney Stoner and Brent Walker. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
I'm okay.
Good? Better than Tyrod Taylor?
Oh,
It looks like he's okay, though.
yeah.
I wanted those 2 wins.
Oh,
I don't
he
want
was-
him to be like hurt, but
He's like doing push-ups and
I'm not gonna lie. I was pissed. Like I was
yeah,
mad. So
I mean,
upset.
I still don't think that he's going to get 400 yards rushing regardless.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is looking like it's trending that you're going to win that first one, the starting one, and I mean, I don't see any reason why he should be starting, but I mean, whatever. It's the Browns.
Well,
I can't take anything seriously.
Anybody that missed it, Tyrod Taylor on the 4th and goal in the third preseason game went down with a pretty bad, it looked bad, wrist hand injury. But the way he was holding it running off the field, it looked like it was.
It was 4th and goal, and they went for it in a preseason game.
Yeah, and then
Cleveland.
He went out, and I was crying. I was sending some mean text messages. I was mad. And then he took snaps on the sideline, and then they brought him back in a meaningless game. So,
yeah, Cleveland.
Is Cleveland still the worst team in the NFL? Like, just like coaching-wise?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as, like, personnel, like, outside of – I'm not talking about players. I'm talking about they are the worst team. Like, if let's start at 1999, okay? We're talking about a new franchise. Let's ignore Bernie Kosar, everything like that. They are the worst franchise in NFL history, period.
Yeah.
Period. They have so many first-round skill position players that have turned into nothingness than any team I've ever seen.
I was going to say before the show we were talking about how like coaching schemes and like teams, gelling together take a few years to kind of take off. How long do you think it would take because Hugh Jackson's a terrible coach, probably the worst coach in the NFL. They have to get rid of him.
I loved him when he was running Geo and stuff.
How long would it take for?
I think he's a great offensive coordinator, but if he is out this season, like midway through the season, bye week, whatever, the guy that's going to come in and take his place is Todd Haley, an offensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
Todd Haley is a coach that handcuffed Ben Roethlisberger. Let's not forget that. He actually stifled a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Correct.
He's not a good coach.
Well,
he's not a good coach.
You're right, but at the same time, can he produce for fantasy? He sure as hell can. Like we've seen it in that Pittsburgh offense.
Okay, that wasn't him. I mean, remember Brody Croyle? Do you remember that guy? Of course not, because that is who was drafted during Haley's tenure in Kansas City. He is not a good coach. He is a terrible coach.
All right. Well, before we get into too much more of this show, we're going to talk about some of the preseason so far, some of our takeaways. We're going to talk about the rookies, how they're doing, how they're looking, who we can look forward to seeing more of, who might be sliding down our draft boards. And then we're going to end the show on a little bit of draft strategy and kind of if there's a certain way that each of us drafts or has like a general idea going into it. Obviously, you got to stay liquid and move around and adjust, but I think it's a good idea to have some sort of plan moving into it. So before we get into the preseason talk, though, hop on Twitter, follow us at 4HorsemenPod. Send us emails, 4horsemenpod@gmail.com. Still on there all the time. So, Alex, what is your biggest takeaway so far from preseason? Like one thing. If I said, tell me one thing about preseason, what would you say?
It needs to stop. That's my big takeaway. I know that this has been talked about a lot, and I know that we've talked about it's a great way for us as fantasy owners to survey players. But let's face it, when you have players that are starters, right? or maybe they're second team, but they're gonna be starters. At times, they could be going against players that have nothing to lose. They want to make the team. They're trying their hardest, and they do something stupid, and that hurts players that are good and could have some value. I'm tired of watching it. I mean, we just said it. Like Tyrod Taylor was in on a play of 4th and goal, got hurt, and then they brought him back in a preseason game. Granted, Cleveland. At the same time, abolish the preseason. That's my takeaway.
How do you feel about that, Brent?
It's football. I like watching football. And for people that are in a lot of dynasty leagues,
add a game to the season.
Yeah, I mean you could, but I like seeing some of those the guys that are drafted or undrafted in the late rounds, those kind of things, like step up and potentially become starters. And a lot of those guys you get to see in the preseason. And so I like it for those purposes, but for the same reasons Alex is talking about, I hate it because you want to see your fantasy studs that you're drafting in these, first, second, third, fourth, early rounds. You want to see them play in the regular season too.
Yeah.
Right.
And with today's day and age in football, it's a dangerous sport. So you're seeing a lot more injuries to your stars than normal. And it's unfortunate.
I mean, you also have to, because one of the things is like, you kind of think it's like, why are these injuries happening so often in preseason? And honestly, I think that has a lot to do with the amount of work they're putting in for, a stretch of time. And it does kind of back off a little bit during the season because they don't have as much time to practice and things like that. So like the tread is a little thin by the time they get to preseason. And once they're done with preseason, things are a little more laxed. They're a little less like, 2 a days, 3 a days, whatever the team is doing. So, and like I said, the players are quality players that are on the field and they have something to lose and they're not going to throw their body around, with, a reckless abandon. And I'm sick of seeing it. I mean, like Brent said, I love football. I want football to be on all the time. I don't want this football to constantly ruin my fantasy team.
Yeah, it's painful to watch for sure. Brent, same question. What's your biggest takeaway?
Player-wise, like I am getting super stoked, and I don't know if I should be or not, but Christian McCaffrey is just making me very excited. A lot of hype surrounding him about getting maybe 25 to 30 touches a game. I've worried about CJ Anderson coming in and maybe taking some of those goal line looks, but I'm just like that. You don't see CJ Anderson coming in and spelling Christian McCaffrey in the beginning of these preseason games. It's the Christian McCaffrey show. He's getting the ball a ton already in preseason. He's breaking off big plays. You've heard that he's gained a little bit of weight, bulked up a little bit to try and take more of that pounding throughout the regular season. But I don't know if I should be liking him or not because the offensive line has just been mangled and hurt, and they've lost a guy to free agency. So you tell me, should I believe the hype? Like,
honestly, I don't think you're off base here. And to be completely honest, he has the skill set that he can survive a bad line. You give him a wheel route, he can take passes cut out of the back. He could take pitches, so I don't think that you have to worry too much about that situation. And what Brent's saying is 100% correct. And I don't think that you're overselling him. You might even be underselling him a little bit. He coming out of college, we saw him. He looked incredible. I soured a bit, not on him, but how they were using him last year. The fact that Jonathan Stewart was still on the field just baffled me. And I think
that's exactly why I like him more this year, is because there's room for improvement. He can get another 50 touches rushing alone. If he gets the same amount of, pass catching work, imagine what he can, if he can get 200 to 250 rushes in a season, add the other 80 catches, and you're talking about a guy getting over 300 touches. He's going to be a top 5 running back.
Oh yeah. And I think that especially where he's going in drafts, if you have a keeper league, you've got a dynasty league, you want this guy because do you think it's out of the realm of possibility that he is a top 5 running back this year? I don't.
Oh no.
I don't see hit that as if that happened, I would be like, okay, that makes sense.
Sure. Do you know where he's going? According to Fantasy Pros?
I know it's probably early to mid second round, but I think his ADP's been rising. I don't know where it's at right now exactly.
15th overall.
Yeah. Okay.
RB11.
Yeah. So still though, you're talking about, like, just think about this real quick. Okay, the back end of the first round, you're getting a guy like Melvin Gordon or Fournette, something along those lines. You come back around and you grab a guy like McCaffrey. McCaffrey's probably going to outdo whoever you got in the first round. I think it's possible.
Right. Would you rather have McCaffrey or Joe Mixon if you were starting a dynasty team?
Ooh, jeez.
It's tough.
Let me just go out on a limb here. I think McCaffrey, because he's shown to be more explosive. Mixon has been growing, but McCaffrey was already there. He was ready to go day one, and he was held back by the team. Mixon is held back by himself a little bit.
Do you think they have a similar ceiling, though?
Yes.
Top 5, obviously. I think they both have top 5 potential.
Like, I don't know why this jumps in my head like it really matters to say this, but I feel like Mixon is top 7, whereas McCaffrey's top 5. So I could see Mixon as like the 7th or 6th or 7th best running back, whereas I could see McCaffrey as 5, 4, maybe even 3. And so I think that the ceiling is basically the same. I mean, when you after usually the number one guy, it's usually very, very close, bunched up there. So, I mean, it's not really saying a lot of a difference, but I don't know. McCaffrey is sexy. I will give you that.
So, Brent, would you take McCaffrey over Mixon?
It's so close. I think I still lean Mixon a little bit. Like I'm really sold on Mixon this year, and McCaffrey is trending in the right direction for me, though. If he can get all the touches that they say they're going to give him, my goodness, like it's hard not to put McCaffrey up there.
The one thing though is that, like, with McCaffrey, you aren't staring at a pass game that could be good. Whereas you look at Cincinnati, I think they could have a good passing offense. So I think that might hurt Mixon just a touch because there's actually more mouths to feed. Whereas, I mean, You're basically like, okay, Cam Newton's probably going to steal the touchdowns, but I think McCaffrey's going to be, kind of a primary target in that offense.
Right. And that's, you worry about Gio maybe taking some of the passing downs away from Mixon. McCaffrey is probably the best receiver for Carolina.
Oh, for sure.
So, all right, let's move into. I want to talk about rookies that have fallen down your guys' ranks. Last year was a great year for rookie running backs. This year, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of
first,
right. We're set up for disappointment now. Like, I feel like everybody's trending down, other than I don't know, maybe even Barkley a little bit. Not really. I still believe in it, but Alex, what rookie have you had moving down your ranks so far?
Well, we've been talking about it. And it was a guy that I wasn't thrilled with his draft position nor where he went, and that's Rashad Penny. I am continuing to sour on him. Before the draft, I liked him. A lot of really good buzz about him. We saw, like we were seeing the possibility of a guy that could get drafted in the second round to a team that could really use a running back. And then he gets drafted to Seattle, which honestly, you would need. I feel like you need a Saquon Barkley in Seattle for that team to have a good running game. And I'm not thrilled. He was already kind of low on my list, and he's kind of falling. I mean, at this point, I like Kerryon Johnson better than him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be completely honest.
Brent,
I'm the same way, though. So. I mean, I'm a Rashad Penny owner, and we drafted our, first round. I drafted Rashad Penny, way early in the process, and Chris Carson's really come on lately. But I find there's something in the back of my mind, like Rashad Penny, he's got to be talented enough to get drafted in the first round. He has to be. And I go back to his college tape, and last year he was the top running back in the nation in college. He won the college football running back award of the year or whatever they have. But he led the nation in rushing. And I just think that at some point, it may not be in the first half of the season, but at some point, Rashad Penny is going to get his opportunity this year because they drafted him in the first round. And going back in history, teams that draft a running back in the first round, they get their shot. So I just think that at some point, Penny will get his shot, and we'll see what happens because it's not a good team regardless.
Yeah.
It's a terrible offensive line, and you really don't have a whole lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball other than Russell Wilson. So,
another player that is trending in a horrible track for me is a player that I'm literally now forgetting exists, Sony Michel. I am forgetting that he exists.
That's excellent news because I want people to forget about him because he has fallen so far in drafts. Rex Burkhead has skyrocketed. James White
Go ahead and let Rex Burkhead go above some of these guys. You are going to be the biggest moron in your league if you are drafting Rex Burkhead in a high draft pick.
Like, what do you consider
Sony Michel? You could
single digits.
Okay. So even in the ninth, I consider high, like, I don't know, sixth and before. I guess once you get to seventh, eighth, ninth, like, I'm okay with you. Like, if you believe in the player, go ahead and draft him. Like, you've already established a good team.
Okay, but let's think about this. Okay, they drafted Sony Michel in the first round. He's supposed to be the number one. James White is a guy that is always good. I mean, he's always there. He's always, so he's two. You should never, ever invest a single-digit draft pick on an RB3 on a team.
I don't know. I would say Rex Burkhead's ahead of James White.
Well, okay. You know how many people have been put ahead of James White, and then James White is still rolled out there? I mean, Rex Burkhead will be injured by sneezing. Do not, like, I'm flat out saying this right now. Do not draft Rex Burkhead ever.
Well, I mean, Rex Burkhead is injured right now.
Mm-hmm.
He will always be injured.
Almost every running back in the New England backfield.
And they keep getting rid of players.
That's what I mean. Sony Michel's going to be back probably by week 1 to start the season. They're just holding him out of preseason right now. And if he does miss time, maybe it's a week or two. But that's what I mean, though. Like, This guy's fallen almost into the double-digit rounds, it feels like. You could get Sony Michel so late now in drafts, and he will be a running back to start in your starting roster at some point this season.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Alex, you talk about James White. James White only has, in 4 years with New England, 431 yards rushing. And he has a lot
Total?
more. Yes, total for all 4 years.
Well.
He has 1,400 yards receiving, which is where he makes his
Okay,
his living.
but
As a
that's
passing
what
game.
Rex Burkhead is.
Yeah,
Rex
and
Burkhead
like,
isn't a rushing.
some people thought that Rex Burkhead could rush, but you're right. Sony Michel, and this is what I'm saying, because I think we're all kind of on the same page. Sony Michel's probably built best to take those runs. I've heard some people talking Jeremy Hill. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
But Sony Michel is right now, according to Fantasy Pros, he's an RB30, going 69th overall.
I have to point out too that how ridiculous some of this stuff with New England is. That people are like, oh, maybe Jeremy Hill's going to be okay. They drafted Sony Michel in the first round. We just talked about this. None of those guys are going to leapfrog him unless something dramatic happens.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
So
yeah.
Say Sony Michel missed. Something did happen. His knee. He's got problems, and he actually misses significant time.
Who do I pick?
Yeah, they have to run the ball.
Okay, but do they? Like who is their leading rusher last year?
Probably Dion Lewis.
I mean, that's the thing, is that they are rushing team. Like, they have had, they've had guys that have come in for a few weeks, and then it's the next guy, and then this guy has a bunch of.
They use the passing game with their running backs as an extension of the running game. They do it better than anyone else in the league. So those small little dink and dunk passes for 4 or 5 yards, you're going to be getting that with per rush attempt anyway. So that's what they do, is they pass it instead.
I will say they didn't do it that well in the Super Bowl against, what team was it? Oh, the Philadelphia Eagles. I just want to throw that out there. Why are you upset?
Who?
I mean, Brady did throw for like 500 yards.
Yeah.
Don't care. The ring is on someone else's finger. What's up?
So
you look upset.
So Dion Lewis did have 900 yards rushing, 896.
Really?
Yes, last year. So they do run the ball, and that's all I'm saying. Like,
Dion Lewis, I thought that he only caught balls. I wasn't even paying attention to him at all.
He actually had 214 yards receiving last year. So
okay,
and he's a little guy too, 5'8". I'm just saying, like, that if Sony Michel was to go down, I think Sony Michel is definitely the back to own, and I do love it that he's falling down because I still like him. But
here's the thing though, like, we can't look at 800-900 yards as exciting. And I think that if the main guy, hold on, I think if the main guy goes down, they're not just going to take another guy, put him in, and run him. It'll be a committee at that point, because that's exactly what happened. Dion Lewis went down, and that's where you had a couple years ago, that's where you had the Jonas Gray, and then you had James White, and then James White got pushed up because he had a great Super Bowl that year. I mean, I don't really like even Sony Michel that much right now. I don't really want to invest, because legitimately you have to invest in these guys because they're going off the board. So of all of them, do you really want to invest in any of them?
Well, and like, invest is, I don't know, a loose term. Like, I think
you're talking single-digit rounds are okay for Rex Burkhead. That's an investment.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an investment it is, but I wouldn't want Rex Burkhead, so I would rather somebody take him there, not me, if he's going up there, because I think Sony Michel. I would rather have Jeremy Hill at the very end of my draft than Rex Burkhead in the 7th or 8th round, and which I think is probably where he's going to go.
On that, I'll agree with you, because if you're at the end of the draft, you're just grabbing at straws at that point, hoping something hits, and they'll be the first person that you cut for somebody else that gets dropped and you want it, or somebody that blows up.
Right.
So I have no problem with that. I have a problem with trying to go after a guy who is constantly injured and is not that effective.
Sure. And
I mean,
I agree with
legitimately
you.
not that effective.
So how high would you draft Michelle then? Like, where do you think he should go? Alex.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of thinking through that. Like,
Sure.
You still have to, well, you should have to still think that he's a number one, but I don't think people are. I mean, if he falls past the 8th round, you have to be looking at him.
Oh, yeah, because I don't think he will fall that far. He's going in the 6th.
Okay, then let's say if he makes it to the 7th round, grab him immediately.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
I
would draft him in the 6th.
Like, what if he ends up being, I mean, hopefully for more than just a season, but what if Stephen Ridley? Stephen Ridley, his rookie year, had 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns.
I mean,
Like,
what if he's LeGarrette Blount from 2 years ago?
Yeah,
1,100 yards and 18 touchdowns. Yeah, it's
exactly.
There a good rusher can come from New England. You know, we were trying to find it last year, thinking that it's going to be Gillislee, and that obviously didn't work out.
First 2 weeks looked amazing.
I know. I turned down some.
And then 3 weeks later,
instant regret.
Mm-hmm.
But Brent, are there any other guys moving down your list?
I mean, you have to say Ronald Jones, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I was hoping that you'd say that.
Good at all. And he's not looking good in pass protection. He's not looking good in the passing game. I've heard from a couple other experts that, you know, he's got a Jamal Charles like game to him without the passing chops.
Right.
Like, he's an explosive runner. He can break off big, nice plays and runs, but he's not very good in the passing game, it's looking like. And
he has to learn how to block.
Is outperforming him. Peyton Barber.
Peyton Barber's trash, though.
Well, see, and that's the thing, is that when a player that is, you know, that is the caliber of Peyton Barber is beating you out to be the number one, like, it's okay. You know, in OTAs, you know, first preseason game, the depth chart reads that you're number 2. That's fine. But when it doesn't even seem like it's a close race at this point. It's like Barber's blowing him out of the water right now, and that's not good.
I don't think it's that. Not good. I think that the perception's there, and, like, obviously I'm a Ronald Jones owner, so I pay particular attention to it. He hasn't looked good these first 2 games. You're right. He's got, I think 11 yards on 12 rushes, scored 1 touchdown. I saw a thread today on Twitter where a guy like broke down each play and showed exactly what happened. Their line has been terrible. They've been getting back behind the line of scrimmage and hitting it. I worry more about Tampa Bay, and we talked about this already, Alex. I know that you agree that Tampa Bay hasn't looked good, especially with Jameis Winston being, you know, suspended. Yeah. That they are subject to even a regress from last year, which they didn't live up to their potential last year either. So I do worry about Ronald Jones, but I think by week 6 that he's going to take that job and he's going to be the starter. He still does look like an NFL running back. Like, there are times in those situation
to Seattle. Like, right now, the undrafted guy is outperforming the first, second round rookies. And it's the same situation, I feel like, where sometime during the season, these rookies are going to start getting better, start learning the system a little more, and outperforming an undrafted player. Now, I'm not saying an undrafted player can't take over a job, but more than likely, odds are the more talented player usually wins out.
Right.
Well, and you've got to also look, and this is where when you've got a guy, especially this is almost science with running backs. If a guy has been on the team for a few years, it doesn't matter about opportunity, something like that. You will see it some way, somehow. You will see, the quote unquote it factor. And Barber obviously doesn't have it because they drafted, Jones. So that he's not going to be there for long.
Right.
So that's where I'm kind of going with this, is that Peyton Barber's starting to move up draft boards.
Yeah.
And those people are going to be very upset.
And that is really the point that I wanted to get to. Even if you don't believe in Jones, do not see Peyton Barber and think, oh my God, I need to reach up into the 8th or 9th round to draft him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be
the same thing with Carson.
Right. I mean, and we talked about that with Carson. People are already reaching up there and drafting him. It's the same thing.
But here's the thing that I have where I agree that you're kind of looking at it sort of similar situation, but I think that the situation over in Seattle is way more muddy because they have CJ Prosise. They've got a few guys. It's a little bit more murky. Whereas, nobody's scared of, Chris Sims. Chris Sims is still there, right?
Charles Sims.
Charles Sims.
Chris Sims just went on IR today, so.
Oh, well, then nobody's worried about him. So it really is Peyton Barber or Ronald Jones. And I think that you're right. I think Ronald Jones ends up taking over, and there's going to be some people that overdrafted Peyton Barber, and they're, because I see some people possibly picking him in single-digit rounds. I can't stress it enough. Don't pick a guy like that or Rex Burkhead or whatever, a player that is going to be overtaken. Don't draft him in single-digit rounds. It's just a wasted pick.
Yeah, don't think that you're being smart.
No.
by reaching up there and grabbing a guy that.
Now, if it were okay, if we're talking about sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. If we're talking about a situation like last year, everybody was all in on Jamal Williams, and let's say that Jamal Williams was slated to be the number one back going into camp, and Aaron Jones comes in and looks like he might take over. That is a situation where you might be drafting those guys both, and because they're rookies. Peyton Barber, we know what he is. Mm-hmm. So don't try to think you're being cute by getting Peyton Barber and thinking that he's going to ride the entire season. He's not.
Agree.
He's just
completely.
not.
I agree completely. 100%. All right. Well, you guys have any off the top of your head that you want to mention? You guys are sliding down.
Guys are
stay
sliding
away
down.
from Naeem Hines.
Oh yeah,
4 fumbles
God.
in 2 preseason games.
We can be quick on that because.
Yep.
My God, I need to get rid of that card so fast.
But keep your eye on Jordan Wilkins. I feel like he could have a role this year for the Colts.
Okay, can I ask you a real quick question? Both of you guys as Colts fans, because to me it seems like people are just writing off Marlon Mack so quickly, and just waiting for with Hines, which to me Mack and Hines almost seem kind of similar-ish as far as and then we're talking Wilkins, and even in my head I'm like, oh, maybe Wilkins. Why are we writing off Marlon Mack so quickly when he's shown so much promise?
Has he though? I feel like you've seen the good for sure. He breaks off long plays sometimes, but gosh, he's always hurt. He played hurt all last year. And then he's already hurt in the first game of preseason. I think he was hurt in training camp earlier too. And he might not even be back early in the season. He could miss a few weeks. So there's talent there, but I don't think he's a 3-down skill kind of player. Jordan Wilkins is what they're touting as a 3-down skill set.
Yeah, but he was drafted way later, so it's not like they were.
Not really. I mean, Marlon Mack was a 4th rounder, and Jordan Wilkins was a 5th rounder.
Yeah,
no, I understand that, but what I keep making hand gestures like you guys can see me right now.
we can't.
but okay, what was Hines? Was he a 3rd?
He was a 5th also, I think.
He's a 4th.
Hines was? Okay, he was a 4th. Okay, so not a whole lot, but not a whole lot of difference between the 3 as far as draft stock. But like, it's not like, okay, if they didn't like Marlon Mack at all, why would they hold off so long and draft a couple of guys that late?
It's a new coaching regime too. Like Frank Reich and his staff aren't the ones that actually drafted. I guess Chris Ballard was. Well, was Chris Ballard there last year? I can't remember, but
yes.
Yeah, I think the GM was, yeah. Because everybody was talking about him being like the savior and whatever.
Yeah, I just don't know if Marlon
as long
Mack
as stays there.
Like with Frank Reich, I feel like they're going to use multiple backs in his kind of system, and maybe that's part of the reason why that Marlon Mack isn't getting that much hype, because they are going to use multiple backs in their offense. But
so where you're saying that, like, it's totally possible. We saw that in Philadelphia with Frank Reich. Is it really a good idea to draft Jordan Wilkins with the thought process that he could be the guy? I mean, where's he going? I mean, I know it's late, but
super late.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's rising.
14th round.
I feel like it could get into the single digits with how people are talking right now.
I don't think so. I don't think Wilkins will get that high. No, I don't even. I can look his because Marlon Mack's, who I was looking at, he's fallen now on Fantasy Pros, RB 37, 89th overall, which I feel a lot better because he was moving up there into like the 5th round.
Yeah,
fourth round sometimes.
Until you see some sort of clarity in that backfield, which if Marlon Mack is going to be injured, you might have a little more clarity because these rookies are getting a lot of reps. Heck, even Kristen Michael, he's been getting a lot of reps.
Let's not talk about Kristen Michael.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I can't talk about it.
I know, it's the worst.
I've already made bets on Cordero Patterson that are out beyond outlandish. So I can't talk about Christine Michael. Get too excited.
Brent, didn't I say like a long time ago that I thought Jordan Wilkins was going to lead the Colts in fantasy running back points? I think I said that like early.
Didn't you say that on the podcast?
Oh, maybe. I know Brent and I talked about it. Because
I feel like that you said that earlier. But
I've never been like a huge believer in Marlon Mack. Like, he's talented, I think. But like we said earlier, all NFL players have talent. You know what I mean? They're all talented in one way or another. So I think that Jordan Wilkins has the best chance at getting significant meaningful playing time, especially if Andrew Luck progresses, even more than he already has. He looks like he's back, being healthy. If that offense can turn around and be what it was, Jordan Wilkins could really surprise people because it's not unheard of for a 5th round player to turn out good. It can happen.
Absolutely.
We see it happen, with undrafted players all the time. Arian Foster wasn't drafted. It can happen. I don't know. Marlon Mack would have to fall to probably like the 8th round for me to want to draft him right now with that hamstring injury. But around the 8th, I'd say that becomes a value.
So in your current mindset, would you rather wait to take Jordan Wilkins late than using a pick in a single-digit round pick on Marlon Mack? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
At this point in time, yeah. I feel like Jordan Williams becomes a really great value in the 13th, 14th round.
Oh, yeah.
With Marlon Mack being hurt, because you're taking a flyer on a rookie running back, so there's a little unknown, but he's getting an opportunity in training camp and preseason games, getting those reps with the starters. So I just feel like it's a good opportunity for him to make a name. And
he's fumbled too. He's not without his problems. Like He fumbled already in the preseason.
I heard that was on purpose because it was into
Mhm.
his teammates' arms in the end zone.
That's
so it
what
was
it
a
was.
touchdown.
Yeah, on purpose fumble. But I own a lot of Jordan Wilkins, so like I obviously want him to be successful. And as
Okay,
a Colts
so
fan
Jordan
especially,
Wilkins will be trash, is basically what
essentially,
Roman just said.
I just signed his. He might as well quit the league now. Start looking
Yeah.
for a new job. So,
Yep.
oh no.
Poor
All
guy.
right, let's. Yeah. What, Brent?
You want to move on to wide receivers real quick?
Yeah, we can
So-
talk about that real fast.
Just real fast. I mean, I haven't really heard any bad reports about any of the top name wide receivers. And I'll go
Mhm.
through them real quick and you tell me if you've heard something different. But Anthony Miller,
Good.
Michael Gallup,
Good.
Christian Kirk,
Good.
Cortland
Kinda.
Sutton.
Good.
You've got James Washington.
Great.
You've got
Good
Dante
Lord.
Pettis, Antonio Callaway. Like, these are how many did I just name off? Like 8 of them. Like, these
Yeah.
guys
Okay.
could have significant roles in a lot of these offenses this year, and I'm really liking the wide receiver class this year. All of a sudden,
Okay. I'm gonna pump the brakes just a little bit.
and you should rightfully, but I'm excited for them because I'm seeing a lot of them doing very well in the preseason.
Okay.
And once again, the preseason talk, I get it, but
But there's no
You
like
can only-
wide receivers that are being drafted real high. So sorry,
Right,
Alex, go ahead.
right.
All I was gonna say is pick one.
Traquan Smith.
Pick one that you want to own.
No, pick one that is going to be the best wide receiver of the class this year. I'm not talking about overall. I'm just talking about this year.
I got my pick.
Moore, Calvin Ridley.
You pick
No,
one, Brent. I'll give you one
And
name.
don't give me 8 names, Brent. I want one.
I got
there's
one
so
name.
many.
Okay, I'll give you
One
mine.
name.
Calvin Ridley is going to be the best.
You took mine.
You can agree with me.
Yeah, I'm really liking Calvin Ridley. I'll just say DJ Moore just because I think he could break off some really nice big plays.
Give me the better passing offense. You know what I mean? Like, because I think Ridley's going to beat out Sanu fairly easily. I hope. They're working him into that offense already. So, and he hasn't done anything to lean the other way.
I'm going based on simply opportunity alone, and that's Michael Gallup.
I don't know.
I'm not saying that he's gonna be like, Dak Prescott's thrown to him. I understand, but I think that he is going to contribute much faster based on necessity.
Are you Van Cleaving this player right now? Didn't you draft him?
No, yes, I did, but I'm not. I'm not. No. Listen. I'm not saying that he is going to be amazing. What I'm saying is that he will be
the best
because these players, regardless. Okay, you're talking about one is on a team with Julio Jones. We can't just say, oh, okay, he's going to be awesome, because a lot of times wide receivers struggle in the beginning.
Sure.
I'm saying that Gallup is going to be forced into the role faster than anybody else.
Do you want to do that bet? I'll do it if you want to. I mean, because I think it's pretty even.
Because
I think it's a lot more even than you think it is. And
wait, are you taking the field on this, or
I'll do Calvin Ridley straight up.
Oh, okay, all right, sure, why not?
I mean, I think it's fair.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay,
Calvin
I thought you
Ridley
were
versus
taking
Michael
the field.
Gallup.
I'm like,
If you want to give me the field, I'll take that instead.
fuck no. Oh, sorry, dang it. Now I got to check the box. Dang it.
So out of all those receivers I just named, do you see any of them potentially getting a 1,000-yard season? If you had to pick one, who do you think could get to 1,000 yards?
DJ Moore is probably my guess.
I would go DJ Moore.
And only because, once again, he could have that opportunity also.
Yeah.
Devin Funchess on the opposite side.
Yeah,
he's probably a more talented player than Devin Funchess. So
if something
maybe
if something was to happen to Julio where they had to utilize Ridley more, I could see that. But I think it would take like an injury to do it. I think DJ Moore could do it like right now, just straight up. And honestly, like it wouldn't 100% surprise me if Gallup did it. Like Dak's been pretty decent when Elliott's been healthy. So if Allen Hurns is a bum like I think he is, then it could happen. I really like James Washington. And I think that he's been really exciting in the preseason, which makes it even worse. Like, he's been really good.
I think he immediately fills that Martavis Bryant role.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to get 1,000 yards. But, I mean, if you have Antonio Brown and Juju, if one of those guys even gets hurt for an extended period, even on one game, you could start James Washington instantly.
Oh, James Washington is going to have best ball potential this year.
Oh, my goodness. I love James Washington at the end of the drafts.
I'm honestly, this player could be your guys' Crowell.
Really?
You are overhyping this player. He is a wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
So was Juju last year.
Okay, well, yeah, technically, but the thing is that Martavis Bryant was kind of garbage. I mean, he was whining and crying about his contract the entire season.
I mean, he was
very quickly, Juju became the number 2. That he's not going to supersede either one of those guys. So you're still talking about, and then he's not even the number 3 pass catcher because you have Le'Veon Bell. He's number 4 at best. I don't know why you guys think he's going to be amazing.
If Ben Roethlisberger throws for 4,500 yards, those yards are going to be there. There's going to be games where he does that. And kind of like what Brent's saying, if something was to happen to Juju or Antonio Brown, James Washington can step into that wide receiver 2 role. It is more about opportunity than just pure talent.
He doesn't have opportunity. You're talking about players. You're talking about okay,
so I just
every
said.
Single rookie has the opportunity if somebody dies on the field, okay? You can't just assume because
I'm talking about a player in a good passing offense, though. Not every team has that. Pittsburgh does. Pittsburgh puts up good fantasy wide receivers.
That does not mean that the number 4 pass catcher is going to be more than 500 yards, 600 yards.
He doesn't have to be to have good best ball potential.
Right. I mean,
I'm not saying he's going to be a 1,000-yard
I'm
receiver.
shaking my head.
He could have a 3-catch game for 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, he has that kind of potential on a weekly basis. But at the same time, do I expect it? No. Best ball, though, you don't have to do that with.
Right.
Okay, in that same vein, Jesse James has the potential to have 38 touchdowns in a game.
Don't be dumb. Don't say stupid things.
You're saying stupid things about James Washington.
It is realistic.
Oh my god!
Have you watched any of the preseason at all?
This is so stupid.
Have you seen?
It doesn't matter. His opportunity isn't there.
Have you seen him do it?
Opportunity isn't there.
All right. Well, you're being absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. You're talking about the number
touchdowns is what you just said.
Okay,
that's the dumbest thing I've heard you say.
Just as ridiculous as saying that he is going to be as effective and amazing as a number 4 wide receiver.
Said that Jesse James scoring 38 touchdowns is ridiculous, as ridiculous as saying James Washington has best ball potential. That's what you're saying right now. Those two are the same thing.
Yep.
You're dumb. You are not that dumb, though.
You know what?
Like, how can you?
Okay, but the thing is that my perceptions have been better than yours almost all the time. So that's why I keep winning these bets.
It's not true.
James Washington, if he's a more of a downfield threat, so there's opportunity there. If he gets 3 catches a game this season, that puts him over 50 catches for the entire year. And I expect maybe 600-700 yards off those 50 catches.
Okay.
It's only 3 catches a game.
600 yards.
No.
Of course not, because he's not that good.
I'm just saying that it would take. I'd be betting on an injury, is what I'm betting on, and I'm not willing to do that.
So
you're not gonna rope me into another bet.
I don't have to. You've already roped yourself into these ridiculous thought process that a guy that is the number 4 pass catcher on a team is going to be fantasy relevant.
I said that he has best ball potential. Like, I don't understand.
You guys
like,
have been
why you're
sucking
beating
this
it down.
guy's D all preseason.
It's because he's good. Like,
if he was that good, he would be in position to be a starter.
Oh, you're right. You're
He
right.
is a starter.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
And fine, throw something out at me then.
He was the college wide receiver of the year.
Well, wasn't Penny like like awesome too? And look at what we're talking about with him.
Why? Because Chris Carson's outperforming him while he's sitting on the sideline with a broken finger.
But he's not looking good.
He's not looking bad. He's not looking terrible.
I almost feel like somehow you guys talk each other into things.
Pete Carroll praises everything. Everything.
I mean, the bet that I made, I don't love with DJ Shark. I was just like, but throw something real at me then, Romine. Throw me something real that we can solidly bet on. Because I have no problem making a bet on how ridiculous you guys are about James Washington.
I mean, I don't even know how we would formulate a bet. We'll make one, but I'm not going to on the spot do it because I don't know. Like,
because you would put him at 6,000 yards and 58 touchdowns.
I don't think he's D.D. Westbrook, so.
Oh God. Yeah, that right there explains and proves my point.
It was a joke. Come on.
But D.D. Westbrook proves my point.
But on the flip
more
side,
opportunity.
Alex thinks Cordell Patterson could probably hit that.
Well, that was just stupid. That was just stupid. Okay, I at least can admit
it's almost as dumb as saying Jesse James is going to score 38 touchdowns. Let's
game.
Let's talk about who's going to be the.
Wait, hold on. What was our bet? I completely forgot.
Which one?
You had Ridley.
Yeah, Ridley versus Gallup, straight up.
Got it.
Brent, who's going to be the first fantasy relevant running back that we're talking about other than Barkley?
I mean, Kerryon Johnson's looked fantastic so far in training camp and preseason. It's just a matter of opportunity with him right now because LeGarrette Blount's there. Theo Riddick is going to take passing work away from him.
Does the Amir Abdullah thing scare you at all? Like, do you remember how good Amir Abdullah looked in preseason?
No, I don't.
You don't remember
why
him,
we question you.
You don't remember him breaking off those runs in preseason, and then he was straight trash.
He would break a 69-yard run and then fumble.
Oh my God!
I don't think he fumbled.
Still talking about Amir Abdullah.
So,
I'm not still talking about Amir Abdullah.
I'm just saying, like 3 years ago, Amir Abdullah was a 4th-round pick, which is how people
he
valued him. Okay, so there you go. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't make you worried at all that there's this hype now.
No,
because I think Kerryon Johnson's looked really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that's where you have to take. That's where you have to look at it though. Like, okay, so yeah, if people are talking about Amir Abdullah, whatever, we know what he is, and legitimately, coaches know what he is.
Well,
if this, hold on,
I just want to make sure you understand what I'm saying, though. Like, I'm not saying that I think Amir Abdullah is going to eat into his.
No. Well, okay, but what I'm saying is that hype and that those discussions don't really mean a whole lot when the guy that you assume is going to take the position is also getting that same hype. It basically is a wash for, the fact that, okay, you're hearing this talk, but that same talk is being brought up about the rookie that is supposed to take over the position. So you really don't need to be worried about Abdullah, even though he might look good in preseason.
Right. I'm talking about like 3 years ago, Abdullah, though. Like, I'm talking more about like the correlation of the two hypes. Like his hype.
I'm sorry.
You see what I'm saying? Sorry. That's what I was trying to make clear. Like, I'm not saying Amir Abdullah this year because I can't anymore with Amir Abdullah. I loved him too much. I let him go, and I can't even look at him now. I muted on Twitter. I muted Amir Abdullah so that nothing Amir Abdullah comes up on any of my So I can't see it.
Oh God!
It was a bad breakup, but like it was kind of. I accepted a trade in our dynasty league where I got AJ Green for the 201, which was guaranteed to be Kerryon Johnson. And the reason I ended up pulling the trigger, I like AJ Green this year, and I still think he still has good value for as a wide receiver one. But
he's the most boring wide receiver one.
I was scared of Kerryon Johnson. I was scared of falling in love again, and I couldn't do it.
You honestly, there's nothing wrong with being scared of falling in love with a player. I've got a friend that is a Detroit fan, and I feel bad for him every year. If you go through their drafts, their second-round picks are cursed. They're completely cursed. And so, I mean, like it's littered with running backs too. I mean, it's sad. It's real sad. So, you know, you've got to pump the brakes when you're talking about Detroit sometimes because they have had a terrible run game for a long time now. And, you know, all the love in the world can't fix the fact that unless he has an immense amount of talent, it's hard to get over. You know, we've discussed this, like the great running backs can overcome a bad line, but decent running backs can't. So we don't know where Kerryon Johnson's going to fall in that category.
Sure. I don't know. So, Brent, you think him? Would he be your pick too, Alex? Or is there any other guys who are you thinking? Like, what's going on in your head?
I don't know.
Who do you consider up there? Like Royce Freeman? Do you think there's any chance that he's the other guy?
Royce Freeman has Devontae Booker to worry about. I kept him just because he was so cheap. I don't know. Like right now, I feel like there are some good running backs, but there are just so many questions. There's so many little issues that you know, outside of Barkley, I just don't know. And it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Like Royce Freeman, I think could be good. I'm not in love with him though, so I don't know why I'm not, because he really doesn't have any competition, and I keep pumping the brakes on falling in love. I don't know.
I feel like he's just a little bit better version of Devontae Booker.
He might. I don't know. Again, I feel like Denver, you know, for all those years where you're always talking about, it's like, hey, it's a plug and play position in Denver. That just hasn't been the case for a long time now. And I like, you just end up getting burned by Detroit running backs. Like they start out good, or they have a pocket of good games, and you're like, okay, this is the guy. And they CJ Anderson you, and you're basically done. You know,
yeah.
I mean, like how many running backs have we gone through? You know, remember Monte Ball? Yeah, he was going as like the number 5 running back off the board with almost no previous experience being in. He was in the league for a year, but you know, like his auction value was like 50. It was crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Brent, like if you had to say that somebody told you could pick 3 running backs to finish, you know, second, if we're kind of like excluding Barkley, I kind of put him in as the first most fantasy relevant. You had to pick 3 running backs, rookies, to finish second, or the field. Which would you take?
So I could pick 3 different running backs that I think could finish second.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Sony Michel. I would say Kerryon Johnson. and I'd probably throw Penny in there. Just I don't know. I just there's something about him.
Alex,
Still hanging on.
I'm going to throw out Penny immediately, but I agree with the other two. I think oh gosh, it's not quite as ridiculous as Penny. I'm just gonna throw Nick Chubb out there. I like Nick Chubb is the only one that nobody's talking about as a starter because there's a clear-cut starter in front of him. However, it's one of those situations that I feel like is kind of set up for, maybe Hyde gets hurt or, gets benched or something along those lines, and just he comes out and just explodes. So he's the only one that's really set up as a backup, but why would you take him where you did when you had Carlos Hyde? It is Cleveland. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much.
Right.
Like there's an actual thought process behind it, but that I'm gonna put that out there as my gut feeling, I guess.
Sure.
Like, why would you get Baker Mayfield when you had Tyrod Taylor?
God, they really set that up stupid. Okay, aside all the jokes aside about Tyrod Taylor that I make, he is a legitimate starter. He has been a starter. Why do you do that and then go out and get Baker Mayfield? You go out, you get Carlos Hyde, a starter, then you go out and get a Chubb. I don't understand.
Sure. And like the Tyrod Taylor thing, the only thing I can think of is that they, thought he would run a similar offense to what Baker Mayfield would run. So they brought him in just to kind of prepare, just like a 1-year bridge quarterback.
Were they sure that they were going to go Baker Mayfield?
From everything I read, yes. Like everything.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like that was what I had seen a lot. That they had tried to make you think that they weren't.
And over again.
Right.
I even heard Josh Allen at some points. So
yeah,
that would be completely different.
I think they probably just throw that kind of stuff out there to throw teams off. So like they don't just assume that you're taking one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like you would want to throw other intel out there. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, before we wrap it up, I was going to talk about some of our favorite draft strategies. But Alex, I know that you wanted specifically to talk about one anti-draft strategy. You just want to throw it out there.
This is not the year to go wide receiver in the first round. I think that running back is so stacked, and you have so many great running backs, and most of the time you need to let guys go out and grab Antonio Brown, and then have to get one decent running back, and then grasp at straws trying to fill that next running back spot. Just sure it up. You can, as many running backs as you have in the beginning, there are just as many, if not more, of those wide receivers that trickle down because other players are trying to fill in those running back spots that fall to the 3rd, 4th round. Just get a couple of running backs and then run the table for a little while, 3 or 4 picks, maybe in a row, wide receiver. I just don't see any reason to go wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
So I agree to an extent, but here's the reason why. Like if everybody is drafting running backs in the first round, and then let's say everyone is drafting running backs in the second round, how does that differentiate any of your teams? That's why I would.
But that's not how it's going to be, though.
You're right. And that's why I think if you can gain a positional advantage at wide receiver, which is more consistent by drafting those top end ones, I feel like it's only at certain parts of the first round where you can do it. But if you're at the back end on the turn of the first into the second round, I feel like that's the best strategy to use a no running back draft.
Yeah. But that means you're going
you can get great running backs at the back end of the first into the second. You can go 2 straight running backs, but to separate yourself from everyone else going running back heavy, you could get 2 wide receivers at the back end of the first round at the turn there. Like you could get a like an Odell Beckham, and then on the turn you can get Julio Jones. And then when it comes back around to you in the third round, you could probably get like a Kenyon Drake. And then, if you do that, though, you have to hit running back so hard.
Yeah.
That third round, fourth round, fifth, you might have to do it like 5-6 straight rounds.
But see, that's the thing is that, if you do it the other way, you don't have to hit wide receiver as hard. And you're never gonna be in a league, well, for the most part, where everybody's thinking, I'm going to go running back, because you're still going to have people that are just way too enticed and need to go Antonio Brown. Now, I completely agree with you. If you are, if you're in a league where all the running backs are just being taken and you can get a positional advantage, I understand that. That makes perfect sense. However, I don't love the fact that then you're starting out with your RB1 as like a Kenyon Drake. I don't love that.
Yeah.
And then you're just hoping that, and your advice is 100% correct. If you do a no running back, you're going to have to hit from third round to 6th, 7th, maybe even 8th round, just grabbing every running back you possibly can. But what kind of quality are you going to get?
Well, you're right. And every year, every single draft, there are running backs that emerge. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
This year, you can get Jamal Williams in the 8th, 9th round and have a good quality starter for 2 weeks at least, and you're getting them real late. And then you can figure something out maybe on the waiver wire. And, but I mean, who knows with Jordan Wilkins? He might emerge as a starter and maybe a capable starter on a weekly basis. Like, I'm just saying, like, there are people that, like Kamara did last year or Kareem Hunt did last year. Like, they led you to fantasy titles. And if people went no running back early on in their drafts last year, then they pick up a Kamara or Hunt. They probably won a lot of titles.
Yeah.
But you have to hit it.
Yes, you're right. You do.
Almost a lottery at that point. And that's the part that worries me the most. And you kind of take that risk out of it if you go running back heavy in the beginning.
So let me give you, I did a startup draft not just a couple weeks ago. I had the 10th pick in a 12-team league. And it got to me, and I was looking at, 10th, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook were all there. And those were 3 guys that I was like, I'm going to take them if they fall there. So I looked at it, and I thought to myself, Odell Beckham's still there. I'm going to take Odell Beckham, and then I will get one of those 3 guys back around on the turn. So I took Odell, and then immediately it went Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, and Christian McCaffrey with the next 4 picks. So I ended up – I was pissed. I reached and I took Joe Mixon. It's a dynasty league, so
I don't think that's a horrible.
Not terrible, but like not how I would feel a lot better. Say I would have started Melvin Gordon and Julio Jones.
Yeah,
I'd feel better about that than I would Odell and Mixon. But I guarantee if you were to poll like other fantasy analysts and players, a lot of them would rather start Odell and Joe Mixon than Melvin and Julio.
Yeah, and I know that we're getting short on time, but when I look at that, what you just said, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable with my team starting out that way.
Which way?
Like the way, like where you have Odell, and then
Mixon. you would hate my team because I actually went Odell, Mixon, and then I went Gronk, Thielen.
Oh my god!
And then I went Golden Tate, Evan Ingram. So like,
where's your RB2?
Duke Johnson.
Oh wow!
Duke Johnson, Corey Clement, Jordan Wilkins, and Bilal Powell.
Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Jump off your roof, man.
I actually like my team.
I'm in a MFL right now, MFL 10, and I wanted to test how far I could go no running back.
Mhm.
So I'm basically like, I tried to see what I could do. I'm hopefully not throwing away my money, but so I went Odell Beckham, Julio Jones.
Ooh,
Third round, I went Zach Ertz.
okay.
Fourth round, Amari Cooper. Now I
Mhm.
was in the 11 spot, so
Yeah.
so it's going to take a while for it to get back to me in the fifth round. There, I was able to get Sony Michel, and I reached a little bit for Carlos Hyde, but he's probably going to be the starter, for the first couple weeks. So, and then I'm trying to fill out the rest of my roster here with heavy running backs. So, I'm not taking. I mean, this is not a very good running back core, but Carlos Hyde, Sony Michel, Devontae Booker, Jordan Wilkins. I grabbed Samaje Perine and Adrian Peterson on my last pick. So,
this is also best ball. Like, so I think that it's easier to do what you're doing in best ball because you can grab a ton of running backs and you just need them to like hopefully mesh together well enough that they put together decent weeks and they don't even have to be concurrent. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wish I would have went Melvin Gordon because I would have liked my draft a lot better if I would have started off Melvin Gordon and Joe Mixon, which is probably the way that I would have gone. So
I would have loved that.
So I know, Alex, with you, it's, first, second round, you're going running back.
Yep.
Romine, does it depend on where you are in the draft, or do you prefer running back than wide receiver than running back?
I prefer going running back. Like when I look back at my teams, and that's kind of I was flipping through just some of my teams I drafted, and a lot of my teams that I end up liking a lot more, I start with 2 running backs. And I feel like the wide receiver value later in drafts, like in the even the 3rd through 8th round, is really, really good. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like you can stock up on guys, but those running backs, those first 2 picks are super important. And I don't mind getting like a Christian McCaffrey or a Joe Mixon or Devontae Freeman, Jordan Howard as my RB2. I feel a lot better. And then if I end up with like Devontae Adams or somebody like that,
another big thing is that those top wide receivers in the last couple of years have been kind of known to put up insanely large games and then kind of peter out for a couple of games. So it's almost like once you get that huge payoff, you're kind of treading water for a couple of weeks. Whereas if you go running back, let's say you get a guy like, I don't know, Golden Tate, maybe a Jarvis Landry. Those guys might not have the ceiling by any stretch of the imagination, but they also don't have the floor. The floor is much higher on those guys because of what happens when a guy like Julio Jones explodes. I mean, he had 300 yards and then went like 3 for 30 the next week. Like
right.
That's the kind of thing that happens. And it's one of my strategies is always looking at game logs for consistency at wide receiver, because I would rather have a guy that's going to put up 80 yards consistently than a guy that's going to put up, 200 yards and then 25, 40, 150, 38, like that kind of thing. Like I want the consistency from my wide receivers so I can go out and get those big top running backs.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like my strategy this year is, I've tried a lot of different strategies, but the one I've liked the best is when I let value fall to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big tier-based drafting guy, but I've tried that and I like my team. But the one I love is when, if I'm the 6th or 7th pick and all of a sudden Antonio Brown falls to me, I feel like that's value. To me,
doesn't it feel so good when you get something at a value? Like you just sit there and feel like I'm the smartest man alive.
It feels like top end talent is actually falling down to you, and you're acquiring people that players that other people didn't want. Like I don't know, that's where I've liked my teams the most, is when I let value fall to me. Like if I can get a Mike Evans in the mid 3rd round,
Oh,
if I
yeah.
can get Keenan Allen in the late second round, like it's been happening in a lot of drafts, and I love it when that happens. So it's not really value-based drafting. It's just I'm almost mixing like a tier-based with value.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you're drafting smart. That's kind of just, I mean, not that other drafting isn't smart. It's just that's smart drafting because you're literally grabbing the best player that is right there for you.
Yeah.
But you're getting them at a value because they have fallen to you. I mean, I think that it's a smart strategy.
No, and that's exactly right. But like, you got to be willing to be fluid. You know what I mean? Like, change up your strategy. And like you said, Brent, like it's more of like a hybrid,
and
best value.
What you're talking about, Brent, that takes a lot of patience. And one thing that fantasy players do not have most of the time is patience, and they really should. Because that's just like what you were saying,
you do a lot of mock drafts.
Exactly.
But that's exactly it. And Brent, what you're talking about, I mean, to wait and watch those guys fall and not panic and grab somebody else, because especially when you get into a run, if you get into a run where people are grabbing all the top quarterbacks, but you're like, you know what? I know I can get Matt Stafford later. I know I can. And like, so you're
just be confident in your decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, don't feel like you just got sniped from the player that's going to make or break your draft.
Yep.
Like, there's another guy right behind him that you can feel confident in.
Absolutely.
Like, be prepared. Go into your drafts with a plan in place, but be fluid, like you're saying. Be patient.
Yep. But on that note, we went a little bit longer than I had expected, but that's okay. It was some good talk.
Well, hopefully we can do 45 minutes.
Yeah, right. Never an issue. But we appreciate you guys stopping out and listening. We haven't been the best at being what's the word I want to look for? Being, I don't know, like
fair.
Consistent.
Consistent's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I kept wanting to say current, but which I guess also applies.
True.
But we are going to be more consistent. It may not be all four of us or all three of us every week, but we will be putting them out there. And now it is the most important time to be paying attention to what's going on. So, like I said, we appreciate you guys stopping out and listen. Hop on Twitter, follow us at 4horsemanpod. Send us emails, 4horsemanpod@gmail.com, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.